All Souls Unitarian Universalist Church, building community, inspiring growth, creating change. Here in the heart of Kansas City, we come together to create this hour of shared reflection so that we might be renewed in courage for these times and inspired to lives of greater dignity, higher purpose, deeper generosity, and more effective action. May the words and music and images that we offer today nourish our best selves, calling forth abundant wisdom and love, a love that has the power to overcome both loneliness in the heart and oppression in the world. Welcome to our service.
Arise, O souls,
Good morning, everybody. I'm Jean Patterson, a member of the congregation, and I'm so glad you're here with us. I know there's lots of things going on in town, so I'm glad you chose to spend your time here. Your presence enriches all of us and our time together. We are a Unitarian Universalist congregation. Our tradition is a large tent with room for many beliefs and approaches to the questions that matter. It is our values of inclusion, compassion, and justice that hold us together. We seek to build the beloved community, making room for everyone and creating a world where everyone's needs are met. You may be new here this morning. Welcome. We know that your first time attending a church, you may want to keep kind of a low profile and just check things out. That's great. We're glad you chose to come. And if you're a visitor and excited to be here and want to let us know about that, we invite you to raise your hand at this time. Let us see any visitors. Oh, yeah, we've got visitors. Yay, yay. Glad you're with us. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you're welcome here. Whether you come with laughter in your heart or tears, you're welcome here. You're invited to join us with an open mind, a loving heart, and willing hands. We welcome you today.
Bring your heart here, your broken, tender heart, weary, worried, disgusted, despairing. Give thanks that you can count yourself among the brokenhearted and the grieving, the disoriented and the afraid. Praise the good news that your heart has not hardened in despair or fear. Ground yourself in the grace that you are not alone in the wishing for another world, a life more certain, a time that made more sense, a confidence in the future, a clarity of what it all means. Every new world begins when we show up in community with our broken hearts and refuse to forget our fear and also refuse to shut down. When we keep singing and praying and sighing, when we stay put in the arena, when we find joy even here, laughter and joy and courage beyond what we could have ever imagined on our own. Courage to keep our hearts open, knowing they'll keep on breaking. Courage to let what is beautiful be even bigger than what is broken. And courage to let this ending be also a beginning. To accept this day, this moment, these people, this hour as a gift. And to say again and again, thank you. Come, let us worship together.
Our chalice lighting this morning are words by the Reverend Michelle Collins. We light this chalice in honor of the families we build, the circles we choose, the bonds shaped by care. May this flame remind us that love is the tie that makes us kin. Now, as you are able, please stand and join us in song. Oh, covenant. Oh, sorry. Sorry about that. Okay, you're standing for the covenant. Good. Together we affirm. Goodwill is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth and love, and to help one another.
Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power. Spirit, draw near. Spirit, draw near. Spirit, draw near.
Bet this one's on. Good morning. I'm Reverend Jill. Maybe you've seen me here before a few times. And I have an actual ritual that I want to do with the grown-ups in just a few minutes that we used to do in my congregation in Lawrence, Kansas, when I was the minister there. But then I thought, we should really all be included in this. So I thought maybe some of you could help make this more inclusive by being here before we start the actual, it's called Candle for the World. Because what we're going to do is talk about the hard things in the world that are happening, not only in our individual lives, but there's some hard things, scary things going on, and maybe if I sat down, I could be closer to you. How's that? Excuse me. Is that better? I should have had a chair. Okay. So, I think we can think about things that are happening in the world and maybe, for one thing, just to focus on people who might be hurting. And then also thinking about maybe helping, ways that we could help them. So can you help me, assist me here with thinking of some of those things maybe in your lives? I'm gonna guess that some of you might know this and think about it sometimes, but here's one. We can think about people who don't have homes to go to, right? And people who don't maybe know where their next meal is coming from. Have any of you thought of seeing that happening? And yeah.
I actually haven't never seen that happening. Actually, one time I had something like that happen because I saw one girl coming out of a bridge near my dad's town.
So, do you ever see people being helped? Or the helpers? What do you see? No? Sure? Anybody else? You know, I think, yeah. Your grandmother helps feed the homeless people. Thank you. That's a good example. I think the helpers, some of them are right here in this room, and some of them are you, right? I know for some things. You too? There you go. Thank you for helping people and thinking of them. How about this? Maybe you haven't actually seen this, maybe you've heard of it. Poor families that come here from other countries because they're in danger. And they come here and then maybe they don't get to stay. Have you heard about that?
Isn't that called immigration?
Immigration, right, that's what we call it. And it's hurting a lot of people right now. There are a lot of people in suffering, and I'm suggesting that we send our thoughts to them. And I'm not sure how right now we might be able to help. If anybody has any ideas about that, let us know here or be thinking about that. Now I've got one more to suggest, because I'm going to ask you in a few minutes if you can think of any that you want to add to this. But I was thinking about pets, because a lot of us have pets, like, cats and dogs, ferrets, what? But you don't. No. What? Mine died. Yours died? Mine died too. I had a really nice dog. Yeah.
I got a kitty.
You got a kitty? Did you take good care?
I got one kitty.
2 kitties. You take good care of them? Yeah. You what? I'm glad that you can take care of the animals that depend on you, but have you heard, do you know that there are a lot of animals that don't... That what?
That's a wild.
Well, wild animals, but also animals that need people helping them, need people to give them homes, and need people to give them food. Yeah.
In our backyard sometimes we see a black cat.
Uh-huh.
And we don't know whose it is, or maybe it's just an outdoor cat.
Yeah, it could be an outdoor cat. It could be a cat that needs a home and needs someone to take care of it. So can you think of any other things that might be going on in the world now or in your community that are concerning you?
I also have a pet dog, Python. So my dad technically owns the pet, and I have.
Did you say a python?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm sure you take good care of the python. Yeah. Yes. Good. Okay, good. Yeah.
My dad, when my dad was cutting onions yesterday, my dad cut open his finger.
Oh, no. So your dad hurt his finger, so we'll send our best wishes for...
My dad got another cut.
And another cut. Oh, that happens. We need to help people. Well, that's good. So maybe it's healing. So that's good. Can you think of anything else, or? Yeah.
We also have 4 chickens, I think.
Yeah.
4 chickens.
Are they okay? Are they doing okay? Okay. Anything else maybe going on in the world you've heard about that is of concern? Ah, are you worried about them?
But when I come up to them, they're like ran to me because they really like me.
So they know that you're probably a helper, and that's a good thing. So,
And last week there, I fed them dried out worms.
okay, dried out.
Picked on my hand. They're picked on my hand, and then I dropped them.
But I'm sure they're okay, right?
And they're picked on.
Okay. I know you're probably all too young for this, but maybe you're not. Does anybody know who Mr. Rogers was? Nope. Do you do? Okay. Well, Mr. Rogers was a really, really nice, generous guy. He was on TV. You know, a lot of kids used to watch him. He's not alive anymore. But he was on TV for a very long time, and he was well loved. And I want to leave you with this thought that Mr. Rogers said. When I was a boy and I would see scary things, my mother would say to me, look for the helpers. Try to find people who are helping. To this day, I'm always comforted by realizing that there are still so many caring people in the world. And maybe we can be some of those people too. Maybe you are in a whole room full of people like that. But what a blessing. So I'm going to have you go to your classroom now, and the congregation will sing to send you to your classroom.
Truth on your lips and kindness in your deeds. Faith to follow where the human spirit leads.
And now it's your turn for this liturgy that I've brought to you this morning. It's called Candle for the World. And we wanted to make sure the candle for the world was at least safe. So here it is. And so I'd like to invite you now to join me in the spirit of prayer. Spirit of life and love, of justice and compassion, we come together weary and worried, out of patience, angry and afraid. As one after another, we experience so many assaults on values and people that we hold dear. We grieve for the profound harm already visited on those who suffer from prejudice, poverty, violence, illness, and environmental degradation. We fear for the destruction of so much progress to which we have given our hands and hearts and minds, many of us, over a lifetime. We come together because we know that this is no time to be alone. Whether here today we are among strangers or beloved friends, because while we know that fear is contagious, we know too, so is courage. We light this candle for those who struggle just to get by, who keep searching for the job that never seems to work out, who wonder whether they and those they love will have a roof over their heads tonight, and who don't yet know where the next meal is coming from. We hold in our hearts the journalists and scientists, attorneys and public servants, and so many others who take risks to offer truth and wisdom in a time of misinformation and threats. We pray for all immigrants who fear for their safety and the safety of their families and loved ones, who dare not show up for work or school lest they suddenly be imprisoned and deported and separated from their families. We hold in care our transgender and genderqueer siblings and selves who have been made scapegoats, who have been and will be blocked from accessing health care. We light this candle for our planet as it suffers increasing degradation from the acts of those who prioritize power and profit. We pray for those who have been assaulted and trafficked, whose courageous voices are too often dismissed. And we remember those who are too angry to cry. I invite you into a time of quiet reflection, an opportunity maybe to find new reservoirs of courage and hope. And you may want to name aloud into the silence some people or situation for the community to hold in care this morning. And I will repeat those into the microphone so that all may hear. May the evil that stalks our land be met with resistance and compassionate strength. May those who are most targeted and victimized by state violence find allies, support, and liberation from bondage. May all war and escalating violence and genocide give way to peace and reparation. And may we find the courage to reshape and reform our lives, our congregations, and our government, so that they are serving not our comfort, privilege, or old habits, but our dearest, truest, deepest purpose. And when it feels like the world is about to end, may we be reminded of how often that feeling signals that a new world is just beginning, that the end is not yet written, and the future may be changed by our own hands and hearts. Amen. Blessed be.
Good morning. My name is Bridget McNevin Pfeiffer, and I am grateful to be one of the members of our Settled Minister Search Committee. I wanted to go ahead and thank Reverend Erin for the really wonderful description she gave of her process of discernment in our latest Flame or Flicker. If you haven't had a chance to read that, I'd suggest you do. I think it gives us a really good idea of process in general, but her own personal journey along that process. One of the things that we do as members of this Settled Minister Search Committee is gather together what once was a physical book and now is more a virtual book that is released representing us as a congregation. This book is a collection of documents and data, but also tells a story of our congregation. And today, while we ask you for your own material contribution to our congregation, there's an extra ask today. And that has to do with the new survey that is coming out. And as Reverend Aaron and as others read this, we hope as a ministerial search committee that it is a faithful representation of who we are as a congregation, but also a representation of our hopes and our dreams, our wants and our needs as a community, for our community as a whole, but also what we are looking for when we are looking for that next settled minister. One of the critical pieces we have is people's personal contributions to that information. We all have our unique needs that we bring here every day. When we think about religious needs or needs for community, we can think of our needs here on one end of our personal search for identity, but also our greater look for how we visit into the world out here as well. Something that Reverend Jill talked about today, how we can gain both a refuge here in our congregation, but also march forward out into the greater world. And then kind of looking at all of those things, also that need for transcendence. So as we look for who we are looking for in that next settled minister, how does that person meet us along our journey from both our personal and our forward-facing out into the worldview and that need for transcendence? How does that person help us explore the truth in reason as well as the truth in poetry? These are huge considerations and not something you should maybe think over as you're thinking of what's on my, to-do list for the day or my grocery list. So if you take the time today and you open up the link for this survey and you're a little overwhelmed by some of these big thoughts, that's okay. Come back to it, sit with it, and know that beyond this immediate survey that you're doing, you're going to be having opportunities over this next month or two to also meet in small groups with members of the search committee to give us more insight into your thoughts. Spend some more time fleshing out some of those ideas that you explore in that survey. It is such an important part of the book that we present because it truly looks at all of our needs beyond just our wants. So thank you in advance for your input, and know that the offering that you give us with your ideas as well as your gifts today will be graciously offered and gratefully received. And now together, let us dedicate our offering. We dedicate our offerings and our actions to the mission at the heart of this congregation, to build a respectful, caring community, to inspire personal and spiritual growth, and to create change toward a just and compassionate society.
A Facebook post by Alyssa Valdez Rodriguez, August 23rd, 2025. Many of us wonder why no one is doing something about the nightmare engulfing us all in the United States right now. I think I know why. Let me explain. It'll take a minute. I was once on an airplane, a Delta shuttle from Boston to New York City, that lost its entire hydraulic system as it was about to land at LaGuardia Airport. We'd already been told to fasten our seatbelts, turn off the electronic devices, and put our tray tables up. The plane was on its way down. I was seated over the right wing. When the pilot tried to lower the flaps and wheels, there was a hollow clicking and sickly whirring sound beneath my seat. The pilot told us the truth. He was calm as he said it, but the news was terrible. We had no wheels, no flaps, no brakes, and once we were on the ground, no steering. We circled 4 hours over Manhattan and out to sea and back to burn fuel, so that in the event we caught fire, when we finally crash-landed somewhere, the fireball would be minimized. He told us all air traffic to LaGuardia was being rerouted to JFK and Newark so that they could prepare a runway at LaGuardia for our crash landing. No, I'm not kidding. Now, before I experienced this, I imagined people would be screaming, crying, praying, begging God at the tops of their lungs in such a situation. But that's not what happened. Instead, the cabin was eerily silent. I was in the window seat, the middle seat was empty, and the aisle seat was an older businessman reading the Wall Street Journal. I asked him if I could hold his hand. He rolled his eyes, scoffed, and said, "This stuff happens all the time, it's fine." And kept reading. "Please," I said. And he relented. I held his hand. Despite his rolled eyes and unworried words, his hand was cold and slick with sweat. He too was afraid. Eventually, the captain was able to get one of 2 emergency hydraulic systems up and running. But, he told us, we were still without steering on the ground. He would have to land perfectly straight, or we'd tip right into the water. Everyone stayed quiet. The plane landed. The pilot landed it perfectly straight. The sides of the runway were lined with rescue vehicles and TV news crews. We did not die. Then, and only then, did people begin to cry and clap and hug each other and thank their gods. What I learned from this is that there is a period of time between realizing you are crashing and actually crashing when, as long as the plane still appears to be okay, people cling to hope more than terror. Even though we all knew the plane had no hydraulics and we were burning and dumping fuel, and they'd closed the airport down and mostly evacuated it so we could crash there, we all still held on to hope. I think that's where the people of the United States of America are right now, in that place where trustworthy pilots of history, sociology, and political science have all told us just how bad this is. We're circling and burning off all the fuel. The news gets worse by the minute. Soon we will crash, or crash land, or land. The human heart hangs on to hope until there is no other choice. People will not fight back in the ways that will work until they realize there is no other choice, until the only other choice is their own imprisonment or death, or that of someone they love. For many of us, that moment is already here. For most of us, it's not. Yet.
Gather what you can, for we must leave now. Gather what you must, for hatred is marching, and we are no longer safe. What shall we take? Time is running out. The way from here will be rough, and we'll make justice as we go. Take only what you can carry. Carry me, history cries. From her wrinkled mouth she begs. Carry me lightly in your hearts. Gather what you can into your hearts. The present moment has arrived, and we must leave much behind.
Of life that lives in us, help us to turn away from war. Reveal the hate that lives in us, help us to live no more in fear. Save us, save our children. O light of love, rain down on us. Help us to heal our wounded world. Our dying forests, gutted plains, smoldering cities, wasted fields. Save us, save our children. O love of life that lives in me, help me to lift my head and sing. Let me know joy as well as pain, see beauty in the rain and wind. Save me, save my children. O light and life and love in us, help us to open eyes and ears. Reach out and listen, touch and love, that we may stand in strength and peace. Save us, save our children.
In the face of all that's happening in our country and the world, shall we talk about hope? Usually, these sermons on hope send this message. Hope is not blind faith. Hope is knowledge about what is possible based on our previous experiences of surviving hard times. And hope requires us to show up to help realize the hope-for possibility. And I've believed in that hope for as long as I can remember. But that is not the hope I'm holding up today in response to the systemic destruction of so much that we hold dear. The diversity and equality and inclusion of the marginalized that so many have worked for decades. Not only an implementation of policies we oppose, that's just par for the course, but the carefully planned erasure of values, deeply held values about humanity and what we as humans owe one another. In our public schools, our universities, in the legal profession, our foreign policy, the public airways, in public health, in our elections, Congress, in the ability to dissent without risk of suppression or worse, and probably, as many legal observers fear, in the Supreme Court. What's next, you might wonder? Well, for churches applying for federal grants, the government is now dictating what religious activities the church can engage in, and even with whom the church can associate. The General Council of the United Church of Christ, Heather Kimmel, has issued this warning to leaders of that denomination that has long advocated for social justice and with which the Unitarian Universalist Association has often collaborated. She writes, "The terms and conditions for the Nonprofit Security Grant Program now require recipients and subrecipients of the funding, among other things, to cooperate with immigration officials, to not engage in or promote programs that engage in DEIA or discriminatory equity ideology within the meaning of the executive order, in violation of anti-discrimination laws, and not participate in discriminatory prohibited boycotts related to Israel." Oh, and to top it off, Health and Human Services is also requiring a certificate of compliance with not engaging in DEI activity for churches. So maybe it's liberal churches that are next, grant requirements being just the beginning. I want to tell you this. A growing number of activists and historians and religious leaders and political analysts are stepping out of the fray and observing the events of the past 7 months. In the words of one of them, which represents many of them, "I've been thinking about this reality not so much as it applies to me, but as it applies to the options we have in front of us. There's been a long, slow shift to realizing that polling numbers don't matter, that public opinion doesn't matter, that the levers we have available to us as ordinary citizens no longer have any power. Reason, data, basic tenets of morality simply are no longer relevant to our elected officials' decisions and actions. Democrats still care overall, but in the current framework, they don't really matter either. I think our democracy, flawed as it was, is gone and isn't ever coming back. We have the illusion of its continued existence and relevance, but I think even that illusion will fade away." Now, I didn't attribute that statement to its source because I don't have their permission, but more importantly, the source doesn't matter. So I'm not wanting to convince you that that is true. It's just an idea that I observe is increasingly being shared out there in some progressive circles, that the window for effective resistance is not just closing, but has now already slammed shut. And I have no way of knowing if this is just true. I mean, no one does. But I believe it's a probability. One that doesn't work with my understanding of hope, because that probability is outside all of my life experience in America. The closest I can come to it are government actions during the Vietnam War and post 9/11. And neither one of those posed alarming existential threats to our democracy. Still, there has to be hope. But now we need a different vision of hope. What happens if and when we are at the point where resistance in the foreseeable future is futile? So I want to turn to that first reading, the one about the writer's scary experience on the flight. With their permission, I'd like to share with you this interpretation by UU minister, the Reverend C.B. Beale. Reverend Beale is a congregational consultant and frequent presenter in schools and churches, and they specialize in learning experiences that involve issues of marginalization and oppression and privilege. So here's their take on that flight metaphor. In those hours flying around, there is nothing that crowd of people could do that would have any effect on how the plane landed. Nothing. But they had the power to take care of each other during those 4 hours. There was nothing to fight in that moment, but there were hands to hold, and that is no small thing. The story doesn't tell us about the people in other rows. It doesn't tell us about how they whispered to each other and prayed together, shared the water they had left and the snacks they had tucked away in purses for an emergency, how they took turns distracting and entertaining the children. It doesn't tell us the story of a couple of people back in the back who stood up to the flight attendant when an elder really had to go to the bathroom. We're not going to crash right now. Let her pee, for God's sake. Right now, if we're on an airplane, they go on, that is on our way to crash. We don't all understand that. The people in the expensive seats and everyone comfortably along the aisles think they are immune. Other people will die, but I'll be safe. Or they're still doing denial. They're not even in their limbic systems yet because they're doing denial. And the drunk bros over the wings are cheering. The key part of the story, they say, for me, is that she asked for help from a stranger. The man did not want to hold her hand. He didn't know her. He was uncomfortable, but he chose to help her in the way that he could in that moment. And I think that's the story. When people break through our denial, that's when we have to make choices about what to do. If we wait so long that there's nothing to do to stop it, then what we will have is to take care of each other. And that is not nothing. So what if those who are in the expensive seats and comfortable along the aisle are not ready to go there yet? And maybe they're right. In fact, in all honesty, I might actually be with them right now because my sense of danger is currently intellectual, and I'm not deep in my limbic system. And I know there are actually people creating acts of resistance everywhere. Maybe it's not too late. But there is this. I believe that to dismiss this premise as not being at least a real possibility is to be living in denial. It is not alarmist to believe, based on the evidence at hand, that the 2026 elections will be hopelessly compromised and that open dissent will be seen as active resistance which will be squelched, yes, even resistance by heretofore untouchable religious institutions like the UUA, like All Souls. and that whatever efforts to resist remaining at our disposal will not be effective in most of our lifetimes, because open communication will be radically unsafe, because people will hunker down in fear. We've seen that already. And maybe most critically, because our cultural and religious values and apparently deeply held beliefs as a nation will have radically changed and a new and terrible vision become entrenched. All of this, of course, is already happening. Where then is the hope? Again, to quote Reverend Beale, what we will have to do is take care of each other, and that is not nothing. I hear that as nurturing one another and all who might join us in beloved community. Indeed, that is not nothing, but that could be challenging. So I want to inspire you today to begin considering, what if something? We can't possibly know what such a changed world would look like. We do know that for Unitarian Universalism to survive, let alone thrive, let alone be a sanctuary for all who might need our communities in a radically changed society, we will have to radically change as well. How else can we be responsive to what will be needed from us? We have to ask ourselves, what will it take to continue building a relevant, beloved community? And the answer is, we have no earthly idea. If we can't know what we're facing, we can't possibly know what a response faithful to our values would look like. But I tell you this, just in case, we'd better be ready to respond, and probably fast. Even now, in some parts of the country, UU churches are growing, attracting young families, especially during the past few months. Our communities may well soon be needed and sought out. So we'd better develop a deep understanding of empathy. Not in the sense of compassion, I think we've got that down, but in the real sense of understanding what seekers and newbies and progressive people lost in the wilderness, what they believe, what they need, not so that we might more effectively help them adapt to our current cherished ways of doing church, but to develop an appreciation of how they might add their diverse experiences to ours so that together we might be transformed. And so we'd better think deeply, realistically, about what we love about Unitarian Universalism and/or All Souls, and what we'd be willing to give up. How we might teach ourselves the life-affirming practice of not only getting out of the way of change, but of generously and willingly being part of building a new way. Such a sea change is almost always a long, painful, and sometimes failed endeavor. I think we'd better prepare ourselves for not having the luxury of time and patience, or of failure. I think we have to be ready for whatever. Now, this would be the moment in the sermon where I gently suggest some specific changes that I feel would be helpful. Maybe some of you are bracing yourselves already, waiting to discover my real agenda. And disappointingly, perhaps, I got nothing. As far as I can tell, things are going well. Not that there aren't always improvements to be made, that's such as congregational life everywhere. I'm proud to be a UU, and I'm delighted to be a longtime member of All Souls. It's just, let's be ready. Let's consider how we'd respond to proposed changes that would alter our own experiences in ways we didn't expect and don't want. I know we can do this. I think it's in our DNA. I've seen Unitarian Universalists Universalism evolve over the past 25 years in ways that are essential and life-giving and sometimes slow and painful. There's always the temptation when joining a movement that you found and love or grew up in to feel that the way it's evolved to this point has always been the norm and we love it, but God help us if it continues to evolve in some unexpected ways. And historically, with every change that's been in response to a changing world with new needs, we have lost some UUs whose personal expectations could no longer be met. There was the excruciatingly painful for many conflict between atheistic and agnostic humanists during the last century and various varieties of UU theists. So atheist humanism had been the predominant theology since the 1920s, so that even with our theology committed to pluralism, many new UUs ended up thinking that Unitarian Universalism was a God-free religion. And that lasted maybe until the 80s, when the Christians and the Buddhists and the pagans and the theists among us decided no longer to tolerate being second-class UU citizens, because we are pluralists, remember. And I don't know how many humanists bitterly left Unitarian Universalism because of that, but I was witness to a good number. And that new openness to inclusion, the acceptance of traditional religious language in a UU context, adding more ritual and sense of spirituality to worship services. Yeah, we can say worship now. Adding more, that seemed to attract more young people, more LGBTQ people, and people of color, at least to the ministry. And that's where I first observed it, and this is continuing to happen. This new demographic has enriched and enlarged our priorities and our understandings of systemic oppression. And then, in 2019, 20 years after I had first been required as a seminarian to prove my competency in the UUA's official established anti-racist commitments, in 2019, a few mostly older white liberals, which I can say because I am one, seemed to wake up to the reality that anti-racism had become a priority of Unitarian Universalism. The association and the seminaries and many, if not most churches, well, who knew? And the pushback at the national level and in some churches became organized and vicious. At least one congregation split over it, one left the UUA. I don't know how many white, mostly boomer, longtime members noisily exited Unitarian Universalism, including, sadly, some retired ministers. And then most recently, the General Assembly, just a couple of years ago, voted resoundingly to adopt the new article to our bylaws with love at its center, with the previously centered 7 or 8 principles still honored but taking a back burner. And here too, some of the opposition was loud and sometimes bitter, a common complaint being that only the principles can represent Unitarian Universalism, this creedal tradition, non-creedal tradition. For all time, apparently, because we'd had them since, 1986. We'd taught them to our kids, we'd posted them on our walls, we'd preached entire sermon series on them. And why does it matter that many young and non-white Unitarian Universalists said that the language and the framing of the principles didn't resonate with their life experience and aspirations? Okay, I know I'm sounding cynical and maybe snarky about opposition to changes. But yes, I know it is so hard when you're asked to sacrifice a part of what's been precious to you for the benefit of something unknown and unvetted. Still, during the pandemic, I was astonished at all the creative ways UUs continued to do church while keeping each other safe. Our congregations managed to do hard things that would have seemed logistically or financially impossible, if not also wildly controversial, just a few months before. all in rapid response to this sudden existential challenge when the cherished status quo was just no longer an option. I'm afraid that in the case of existential challenges, a mere deadly pandemic is nothing compared to what we might be facing. In an unimaginably changed world with values threatening to erase ours, what will radical hospitality look like? What will social justice look like? What will nurturing beloved community look like? What are we willing and able to sacrifice? What risks are we willing and able to assume? Let's listen once more to the words of Stephen Schick. Gather what you can, for we must leave now. Gather what you must, for hatred is marching and we are no longer safe. What shall we take? Time is running out. The way from here will be rough, and we'll make justice as we go. Take only what you can carry. Carry me, history cries from her wrinkled mouth. She begs, carry me lightly in your hearts. Gather what you can into your hearts. The present moment has arrived, and we must leave much behind. So would you join me in singing about what it is to build a new way? Of all the challenges and pain of ongoing change, here we are. Here we still are. And I hope here we will be. And in the words of Joseph Cherry, if we have any hope of transforming the world and changing ourselves, we must be bold enough to step into our discomfort, brave enough to be clumsy there, loving enough to forgive ourselves and others. May we as a people be granted the strength to be so bold, so brave, and so loving. Go in peace.
The hours of religion, which like sun true.